Hello everyone and welcome to this special 50th episode edition of Political Frenemies. Who would have believed it? Me and Chris have survived 50 editions of this podcast. No, I love him really. Did I really just say that? I like him really. So before I introduce our guests, I guess that I really should say hello to him. We've put up with each other for 50 editions. It's my political frenemy, Dr. Chris Newton. Chris, how are you?
Hello, I'm good. Yeah, I see that you're at the Lib Dem Spring Conference at the moment. I've been looking at your tweets, and it really sounds like I'm really missing out there. I'm absolutely gutted that I'm not there. So there you are.
This is where the real party is, Chris. So yeah, I'm here in lovely York for Lib Dem Spring Conference, and it started with the rally last night. So we'll talk a bit more about conference in a minute. But just to say that I'm staying here. I'm staying at the Bar Convent Living Heritage Centre, York's best kept secret since 1686. It's the longest running, the oldest, which way you want to put it, Catholic convent, or former Catholic convent now, in the British Isles. So yes, they've got to put up with me for quite handy. They've got to put up with me for a few days. So yes, it's been lovely so far. So yes, and it's very sunny. So yes, all going well here in York. But we'll talk about how it's going for the Lib Dems in a moment. But let's introduce our panel, shall we? So first of all, Tory councillor, author, commentator, all-round good guy. It's Matthew Goodwin-Freeman. Hello, Matthew.
Cheers. Thanks for that.
I know, what a nice introduction from me. Next, we've got Lib Dem.
I'm not used to these. It's good.
No, well, see, I thought I'd start off nicely, for our 50th episode. Next, we've got Lib Dem, Yellow Rebel YouTuber. It's my good pal, Andy Chandler. Andy, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you, and pleasure to be here. Yeah.
Wonderful to have you. And finally, we've got academic and former Labour advisor, Matt Lloyd. Matt, hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. We thought that we'd have you along because there's just not enough Matts or Matthews on this programme. We needed one more. And Andy and Chris are very much the minority. They need to change their name by Gene Poll to Matthew. What we're going to be discussing today is Lib Dem Conference, because I insisted. Then we'll talk about Iran war latest. Then we'll get into the Mandelson files, another big story this week. And then we'll talk about illiberal Labour. So if you're all ready, let's do it. So I am indeed here in York for Lib Dem Spring Conference, the gathering of the party faithful, and it began last night with the conference rally in the Barbican down in York city centre, and lots of Lib Dems here. I'm sure you'll be pleased to know, and the rally was enjoyable. It had its cringe moments as well, but it wouldn't be a Lib Dem rally if it didn't. And we heard from a number of people on stage, including my good friend Tom Gordon, of course, Lib Dem's only Yorkshire MP, the MP for Harrogate and Knaresborough. He welcomed us to Spring Conference and to Yorkshire. And then we heard from various different MPs. Obviously, the big pitch was about the elections taking place in May, and we heard from our London spokesperson Luke Taylor, who talked not just about the elections in London, but also in Scotland and Wales and throughout the rest of England as well. And then it was all capped off by Josh Babarinde speaking to the faithful for the first time as the new party president. And Josh is really top draw always. I think he might just be our next leader, but perhaps we'll get into that in just a second. So it's been really enjoyable. Yeah, indeed. But it's been really enjoyable so far. And I've got some intel for you, which I shall which I shall just hold off on for just a moment and speak about that in just a second. But I guess we'd best go to our other Lib Dem on the panel, Andy. And Andy, from what you've seen and heard so far, I mean, I know you're sadly not here on this occasion, but I mean, do you think we're having a good conference?
It's certainly well. Considering last year's rally, you weren't too pleased. So if this year's rally's gone more to your persuasion, Matthew, then yeah. I mean, it's quite hard not being there on the ground, but from what I gather, it seems like the atmosphere. What I've seen online, it seems like the atmosphere has been pretty good. Obviously, what we can come out of this, what I hope would come out of this conference is in terms of where do we go in terms of party strategy, party policy, and hopefully members will be able to make their voices heard and give us a little bit more air in our wings. So yeah.
Absolutely. So let me say a bit about what I was told last night, because then it'd be interesting to get all of your reactions to it. So I was told by someone senior in the party that there's significant discontent in the parliamentary party with the leadership of Ed Davey, and that that's all it is at the moment. It's discontent, and no one's suggesting anything other. There's not about to be a putsch. We don't tend to do that in the Lib Dems, but that it's been made clear to Ed, to his face, that he needs to book his ideas up and that we need to be doing better than we're doing, especially with the Greens as resurgent as they are, and obviously with Reform doing very well as well. So Andy, I'll come back to you for first reaction to that. What do you make of that?
Brutal honest opinion. I don't tend to have a lot of sympathy with parliamentary MPs who make a habit of leaking things, saying about discontent, but then not actually doing anything about it. If you've got issues with the leader, then it's, everyone thinks we're just nice and cuddly in the Lib Dems, but we can be brutal. We have got rid of leaders who we feel like we're not performing well. In terms of my own feelings of Ed Davey, look, I think there is definitely a squeeze in the Lib Dems. I think there's a squeeze from it's coming, obviously, in the election, it's coming from the squeezes, Reform and the Greens, and this is impacting all of what used to be the mainstream parties, the Conservatives, Labour, and us. So I think we are feeling the squeeze there. Whether our strategy means we have to appeal to the Greens, I think there's definitely something there that could be that we could look at, sort of the more what they call them, the watermelon Greens, who are a bit more on the right for the Greens. But also, we have to also face reality, Matthew. We are competing. We are trying to save a lot of seats that were former Tory shires. So we are in this very confusing situation in politics. But I think Ed Davey. I think Ed Davey. When on a good day, Ed Davey can be brilliant, but when it's bad, it can be pretty bad. But in terms of my own view, I think if this is why conference is quite important. If there's going to be discontent, then probably this is a good time for members to sort of speak up about it, to sort of really test the mood at conference. So it could be a very good kind of survey. So I would say to members, use your voice at conference to sort of make it clear where you think the party needs to go.
Absolutely. And can I just clarify that I said someone senior. I didn't say what office they may or may not currently hold. Matthew Goodwin-Freeman, go on then. Here's your chance. Free goal kick. How do you say about the Lib Dems? Go on.
I mean, Firstly, I'm surprised that you could, well, not surprised that you could find a venue big enough for all the Lib Dems, given your membership numbers seem to be falling through the floor. I didn't even know that Lib Dem Conference was going on, as do I not think most of the country. Nothing substantive will come out of it, other than maybe Ed Davey arriving on a horse or something this time, who knows. I think this, coming back to an actual point, I do really feel sorry for the Lib Dems. They're the only party that's not improved in the polling since the general election. Well, other than Labour. They're just, it's the same.
14%, Matthew. That's 2 percentage points.
It's not great.
Rise. It's not great. I'll give you that.
So in that space of time, we've seen Reform double. Even the Conservatives dip and now growing again. The Greens come from nowhere to overtake you guys, us, Labour. I mean, I do think there is an existential crisis for the Lib Dems that they are sleepwalking into. That if you have a leader who for 4 years, I think, spent his time getting headlines by doing joke things, the minute you want to switch that into being statesman and being an actual leader that could put the party forward and talk on the national interest, you're going to be bombarded with those videos of him on a jet ski, those videos of him hobble horsing around, all these things. You can't mix oil and water. So look, enjoy conference. I'm sure next year the local tavern will be big enough for you guys, given the way things are going on membership. But I do think that a leadership challenge has to come sooner or later for Ed Davey. I mean, you guys, he wants to be statesman, and there are some issues that he's very good on, like social care, but he is tainted by how he got fame and recognition, which is, I mean, and also let's not forget everything to do with the post office, which all boiled up again last year. But he is tainted by being a clown, and that's the issue. You can't be a statesman and a clown at the same time.
So just a couple of quick points in response from me to that, and then we'll go to Matt and to Chris. So just to say, on Ed Davey, I've long since said that actually his place in history is secured. He's got our best ever result as a modern party, 72 MPs, and that probably he should be thinking about moving on, given that his legacy is secure. Second, to say that you can say what you like about our membership numbers, Matt, but in May, I predict with a certain degree of certainty that we will gain seats in Scotland, that we will at least gain a seat in Wales, and that we'll gain seats across England. And I don't think there'll be all that many parties that can say they have done all three of those. So, I mean, never count the Lib Dems out is what I'd say. Matt Lloyd, your thoughts on this one?
So I'm not sure whether a change in leader will actually change anything, to be honest. I think I was also going to say that I thought Ed Davey done a good job in increasing the MPs. It was the first time that the Lib Dems seemed to get vaguely proportionate to the amount of votes compared to the amount of MPs they got. And obviously it was a massive increase. And I think he did that through those stunts. So as a result, you can't really challenge that strategy. I think it goes more to the heart of Lib Dems, which is their problem. They need to be able to present a centre-left alternative and a sort of centre-left policy platform, which is currently a crowded market at the moment. It seems like Kemi is trying to do centre-right. The Labour Party is attempting to grab onto the centre-left for dear life. But they've got a problem in the fact that the Greens have risen, and this sort of protest party that lots of people, particularly middle-class people in the South, wanted to vote for, can now vote for Greens, particularly after the by-election in Manchester sort of shows that the Greens are a viable party. And that sort of strategy of, bad bar charts from the Lib Dems during campaigns and going to one constituency and saying one thing, going to another constituency next door and saying completely different, is no longer sort of a viable strategy. So I think they need to think about what is their policy platform, what are they going to stand for, before you start sort of chopping and changing leaders. I've missed something. I'm more pro vaguely. I think Ed's done quite a good job, and that's coming from a party where we had coming from compared to the Ed who led the Labour Party. He's done a very good job. So yeah.
I should just say that I did bump into our deputy leader Daisy Cooper last night, and she was in very fine form. So it was lovely to see her. Go on then, Chris. What are your thoughts?
Daisy.
Yeah, I mean that was an interesting set of points there, but at the same time, the Lib Dems are being leapfrogged by Reform, being leapfrogged by the Greens. So there's clearly an issue there. I think there are three kind of issues with the Lib Dem. One is their leader. I think he doesn't infuse people in the way a Polanski does. He's a figure of the past. He's a figure of the coalition government and so forth. So I think there's a disconnect there. And all of the issues that Matthew Goodwin-Freeman said about, his stunts and so forth. Second is the direction of the party. It's very confusing to know what they stand for at the moment, as has been said. Are they going? They're trying to get ex-Tory votes, but also sort of Green voters as well, and it's very confused. And the third thing is that Ed Davey just talks about a very narrow set of issues. Every week he seems to talk about Trump, which, I'm sure lots of people agree with him on Trump, but it's not resulting in sort of poll increases, and Polanski can attack Trump much more, fiercely than Davey can. And yes, he talks about social care as well as a very important issue, but he needs to broaden the agenda. He needs to talk about other issues. He can't just rely on bashing Trump every week. So that's my view there.
Lovely. Okay, so, folks, if you do want to follow along to see what's going on at conference, then do follow my socials, because I'll be posting regularly over the next day and a bit. But now you'll be very pleased to hear that it's the return of the quiz. The quiz. So, here we go. So, yes, great enthusiasm there, folks. Great enthusiasm. So I hope you've got pen and paper ready. There's going to be 5 sets of 2 questions, okay? But don't shout the answers out. Write them down, and we'll come to the answers a little bit later on. So, question 1, and remember, you're just writing down. So, and these are all about our past 50 episodes of Political Frenemies. So, episode 1 was published on November the 9th, 2024. Chris hosted, I was co-host, but what was the first ever topic we debated? So, you're writing that down. That is question number 1. And don't go Googling.
I think I know this.
Don't go Googling. Don't go YouTubing. Okay, so that's question 1. So, question number 2 for you gentlemen is the following. And by the way, I should just point out that considering that Chris is the only one who's been with me through the whole 50 episodes, if he doesn't win, it's going to be embarrassing for him. So, I'm saying
no pressure,
now.
Chris.
Yeah, no pressure. No pressure for the good doctor. Okay, so question 2. Episode 17 saw us have our first ever guest on the podcast. Who was that? Remember just writing down? Who was that? So those are the 2 questions. And whilst you cogitate on that, we shall get to our next issue, which is a very serious issue, of course. It's the ongoing conflict between the US, Israel, and Iran. Trump, including over the past kind of 12 hours or so, continues to use ever more bellicose language about what is happening, in Iran. And so I guess the most prescient question, probably in terms of a British political point of view, and we're a British politics podcast, is, has this week vindicated Keir Starmer? Matthew Goodwin-Freeman.
No. We want to be a superpower. We want to be on the international stage. We want to be there with our closest ally, which is America. When they needed us to start this war and take out Khamenei, we delayed and we hid behind international law. When our bases have needed defending, we've had to rely on the French and other countries to do that for us whilst we decide whether we're going to send a destroyer and then finally send a destroyer that will get there in 2 weeks' time. For all the questions about the legality of starting this war or how it's dragged on, why wasn't this what like Venezuela where it was only 1 day and that was it? This is a completely different thing. This is the Americans doing what the world wants, which is taking out a despotic regime, a totalitarian regime in Iran, where people don't even have the right to protest or free speech. Women are told what to wear, what to do, and if they don't, they are murdered. This is the same regime that in January and February this year killed 30,000 of its own people for protesting, but will only admit to have killing 3,000. Everyone wants the end of this regime, apart from somehow some deluded people here in the UK mourning the loss of Ali Khamenei. It makes no sense. The fact that America had the guts to do this, we should have stood there with them. It's something that we would love to be able to say Britain could do. We're going to take out despotic totalitarian dictators around the world, but we can't. We don't have the capabilities. So I don't think this week has vindicated Keir Starmer. I think it has shown the UK for the poor and weak state that it is in, the fact that we could not even dream of doing what America is doing. And what it will have done is solidified America's place in the world as the superpower that makes decisions.
Okay, Matt Lloyd?
So I think it vindicated him in terms of the public opinion, but I think he did it almost accidentally. I don't think it was sort of intentional. I agree with Matt Goodwin-Freeman, the idea that I think the whole episode just sort of highlights how weak Britain currently is and how we are just nowhere near where we need to be. I mean, all the many of the generals, current generals and former generals, warn that we're going to be in some sort of geographically constrained war with Russia. The only disagreement seems to be when, whether it's 5 or 7 years, or some saying 3. And so I think that this represents possibly one of the first chapters in that war. I think so. You've got Iran, you've got Russia, you've got China, and you've got North Korea. We're going to be facing them indirectly through proxy wars. I mean, what I tell my students, I've been teaching international relations, is that currently the missiles being shot down above Dubai were sold to Iran by China. So we're currently shooting down Chinese, some of them are Chinese missiles. The attack on the RAF base in Cyprus was done via a Russian drone. So you can already start seeing how these proxy war dynamics are starting to play in. As for Starmer, I was surprised because usually the answer from the UK should be yes whenever America comes in and asks for or requests any aid or use of our bases. It's one of the key sort of pillars of UK foreign policy to remain close to the American administration. I was surprised that we didn't. I would appreciate that they might have wanted some time to think about whether they wanted to join in the offensive, but in terms of using our bases, I think that should have been an automatic yes, basically, and I think that weakens Starmer. And when people are talking about how successful he's somehow been during this chapter, I think it's more to do with electoral popularity, which isn't always the most it's not always the most effective or successful long-term foreign policy to play to just be concerned with how it currently polls at the time.
Okay, so Andy, we've heard a couple of relatively, or in Matthew Goodwin-Freeman's case, very pro-war stances. Are you going to give us an alternative view?
Yes. I just want to start by saying that I have a friend, Mariam, who's of Iranian descent, who's not heard from her family for months. So I want to start off by extending my thoughts and prayers to her during this worrying time for her. The thing is, I think there's just so much short-sightedness in this conversation. You know, we're sort of talking about war, and sort of seeing this war in that it can only be in isolation to that region. It clearly hasn't been the case given what the oil shocks that's happened. But the thing that worries me about the way people are talking about this conflict is the assumption that you can somehow engineer regime change from the sky. You only have to look at Iraq after the first Gulf War under George Bush Sr. to understand that that was not made into a reality. So if anyone is having an honest conversation, we would know that airstrikes alone is not going to remove this regime. It isn't this fragile state that will just collapse because of airstrike. It has a deeply entrenched political infrastructure, the Revolutionary Guard, the clerical system, and a powerful security apparatus. The idea that if you kill the former Ayatollah, that the whole weight of the regime was going to collapse overnight is just absolutely foolish. They've existed for decades, these institutions, and they were always going to be prepared of external threats. And I just worry, because I was learning a lot about the history of Iran. They have quite a sizable ethnic minority community there. And I really worry that if there's no international coordination and a real plan, because I'm not getting any plan from this White House. We've yet to hear from the White House what the purpose of this war is. We were told it was about nuclear weapons. Then we were told it's about regime change. Now we're being told it just changes every time. And so the messaging coming out of Washington does not exactly inspire me with any confidence. And we're hearing one moment it could drag on for weeks. The next moment it's supposedly nearly over. Oh no, now we're a few days away. So again, and then we're being told, the Kurds are going to get involved, and now the Kurds aren't going to get involved. And I went to my Kurdish barbershop the other day, and they've told me the number of times the Americans have betrayed them. They've betrayed those people, and they've got no confidence at all that even if they did get the go-ahead, they would get any support from the Americans. So I think Keir Starmer is right to edge caution on this, so we don't drag ourselves deeper into a war, which will put us in a further security risk, because there will be repercussions, there will be retaliations and terrorism, and to only use our military capabilities for defensive purposes. And I also think a little's been said about international law here. We should be playing by the book on international law. Is international law perfect? No. But that's why you make efforts to get people to change the law. But we wrote those laws. The British lawyers wrote those international laws. And we should be setting the standards. If anything, we should be setting an example for the rest of the world to avoid chaos and avoid legitimising other countries to provoke war, because it ends up becoming the law of the jungle. But where I agree with my party is that we need to, what does defensive purposes mean? We need to know the detail on that. So I think there needs to be clarity from the government when it comes to this, and also clarity on the cabinet level, because I've been hearing a lot of leaks coming out from the cabinet and coming out from people close to Keir Starmer that there is no unity on this, and that can't happen. You can't be having one that's just bad comms that there's leaks happening anyway, but also you can't be having a cabinet with so much on such a sensitive issue with so much disunity.
Okay,
and no
thank
clear
you.
direction tree.
Thank you. So Chris, can I put a couple of those points to you? So number one, that Andy is quite right to remind us that war isn't some computer game, to borrow from Tony Benn. It involves real people's lives on both sides, and indeed people that are not on either side per se, like my family members and people who live in Dubai, who are part of the crossfire and the wider UAE and the region, who still have missiles going above their houses. So that point, and also there's lots of despotic regimes around the world. Are we saying that this is the new world order, that the Western allies are going to go in with force and remove them, or is it just this particular despotic regime?
Yeah. Firstly, in relation to your first point, we always have to remember that this is an extremely dangerous affair, and that we want to keep collateral damage, civilian deaths, civilian casualties at a minimum. Because that's the moral thing to do, but also we are on the side of the Iranian people that had protested against this despotic regime and were mowed down by the Iranian security forces. So we must remind ourselves that this is a dangerous affair, and that targeting must be as accurate as possible under the circumstances. In terms of why Iran, I think Trump's speech on the outset set it out. That Iran poses a significant threat in a number of ways to the region, through international terrorism, through as MI5 said, 20 forward plots here, but also. Yes, you're right, Matthew. We can't take out every single dictatorship, but there is a real strategic imperative here, and it goes back to something that Matt Lloyd said earlier on, in the sense that Iran is the top, one of the top powers in the authoritarian axis, and it's interconnected with Russia, with China, and so forth. So if you were to prioritise, then Iran would be up there. Plus, of course, what kicked this off in the first place is what I just said earlier, is that there wasn't just a security imperative here, but there was an immediate humanitarian imperative as well, with the Iranians, mowing down, with the Iranian regime mowing down so many people in a matter of days. So there's a security argument. I would say there's a legal argument. Andy, I take your point about international law, but international law has different interpretations, and your interpretation of Article 51 is different from my interpretation. So in answer to your question, Matthew, Iran poses a major threat to our security. There was a humanitarian imperative there as well, and therefore that's why that answers the question: why Iran and why now?
So I just want to ask our two Conservatives on the panel this quick question before we then go back to our quiz. And that is, what about the flip-flopping that we've seen from Kemi Badenoch and indeed Nigel Farage? And there's been no doubt that however much they try and deny it, they have changed their positions from being really quite bellicose in terms of saying that we should be part of this war to then significantly rolling back. And I have to say that I listened to Kemi Badenoch's full interview on BBC News the other day, and I was trying to be objective, but she sounded absolutely all over the place in terms of her position on this conflict. So go on, Matthew Goodwin-Freeman. What's going on with your leader there?
Well, I disagree. She said at PMQs this week, if she were Prime Minister, our Navy ships would have left already. She's been clear on this. She said that we need to be in the war. We need to be helping America to bring down the Iranian regime. And at the end of the day, we talk about international law. Where's the rights of the women who were wearing their hijabs or wearing their hijabs incorrectly and got murdered for it? Where are the rights of the protesters this January, February who were murdered for protesting? Where are the rights of the 300,000 Iranians that have been executed by this regime since they came to power? The whole point of this war is to level the playing field, to give the Iranian people an opportunity to rise up. As Andy says rightly, this is not easy. It's not like Venezuela where you can capture the leader and there we go, the people belowhand were looking for a rebellion anyway. This is a full-on, trenched-in organisation, but this is for the greater good. All of our rights right now, even doing this podcast, even having access to the internet, even raising our voices right now, people in Iran cannot do. So that's what this is for. It is for giving millions of people the rights to the freedoms and luxuries that we enjoy, that they are being held back from by their own people. That's not acceptable, and that's why, frankly, this has to happen, and Iran is the head of the serpent. You take out the Iranian regime, you stop funding for Hamas, you stop funding for Hezbollah, you stop funding for ISIS, you stop funding for so much of the terrorism around the world that is going on. So as much as the lawyers might say this is unacceptable, this shouldn't happen, well, the shoe's on the other foot. Where have they been for the last 40 years calling out the Iranian regime? But when it coming back to Kemi Badenoch, I'm sorry, she's been clear as anything. If she were Prime Minister, we would have got our boats into the water already, not just yesterday.
Can I just step in? I take issue with the whole it's for security purposes, but how come no one here has talked about Trump lifting sanctions for Russia, and because of the oil shocks, Russia has now got a better economic hand. They've taken missiles out of Ukraine. No one's talking about that. No one's talking about that. So I think if we're being honest with ourselves, that also needs to be addressed, or else we're all going to end up looking like hypocrites on this issue.
Well, I think that's a very good point. I wasn't aware of that. I think that's wrong. I don't know why Trump would be doing that. It's a good point, and at least you've raised it.
Guys, I am chairing this episode. Thanks very much. So, Chris, if you can just respond to my point about the two right-wing leaders, and then maybe answer Andy's point as well, and then we'll move on. Thanks.
No, I was just going to say I don't agree with Trump for doing what he did there, and I don't understand this position of Trump, being tough on Iran and soft on Putin. You could argue that Starmer's the other way around, sort of tough on Putin, but not so tough on Iran. I don't find either position kind of consistent or make any sense. In terms of the leaders, I did notice a change in nuance in relation to maybe I've just being fair and objective, and maybe I listened wrongly. I did notice a slight change in nuance on whether they would participate in offensive action. I think firstly we need to, these events are being played out. So to chop and change your mind when things going one way or the other, I don't think it is a good look. But on the point about kind of the participating in offensive strikes, again going back to the wider point about the authoritarian axis. The question that I always ask myself is, how would Putin sort of view that? How would Putin view the fact that our bases are attacked and we didn't retaliate? And okay, it would be only a symbolic strike. I'm not saying that would make a tremendous amount of difference, but I think Putin would look at that and say, well, if we're not responding in response to an attack on one of our own bases, what chance are we going to respond if he invades the Baltics? So I am concerned on that level.
Okay, thanks, Chris. So I will just take Chair's prerogative and have the final couple of lines on this. My view is that two things can be true at the same time, that you can absolutely depose this dreadful, tyrannical, awful Iranian regime, and also happen to think that international law should be complied with. But those are my views on that. Right, let's go back to the quiz and have our next two questions. So pens at the ready, gentlemen. And here is question 3. Our first ever bonus episode was uploaded on June 6th, 2025. But about which parliamentary by-election did we analyse the results of? And for a bonus point, who won it? So that's which parliamentary by-election, June 6, 2025, did we talk about on that bonus ep? And who won that by-election? So that is question 3. And question 4 is as follows. On which episode did a certain Master Mathew Goodwin-Freeman first appear? On which episode did Matthew Goodwin-Freeman first appear? So, whilst you cogitate on those questions, we shall move on to...
We're not asking for the names, are we? That's the title.
We shall move on to our next topic, which is another really serious issue this week, which is the Mandelson file. So these are the internal government and Labour files. about what led up to the now, in hindsight at least, and probably in foresight, and that's the point, rather disastrous appointment of Peter Mandelson as our ambassador to Washington. So really what we want, gentlemen, is reaction and then answer to this question. Why has Starmer survived this so far, and do you think he'll continue to do so? Matt Lloyd.
Nice, easy question to start with. I think, so reaction to it, I think, like I said, it's only the top of the iceberg. They said they've released, was it 148 of a possible 100,000 documents, which is problematic. I think the fact that it just reveals what we already know, which was that Mandelson's appointment was probably not a wise decision in hindsight, as you were saying. And why has Starmer survived this? I think he survives it because the other leadership camps do not wish to take on the administration right now. Because why would you? Because you've got elections that probably look really bad for Labour in May. You've also got the Mandelson sort of unravelling continuing, so you might as well let Starmer take flak for that. But also, I was wondering, they were announcing further changes to the asylum seeker system. I was wondering to what extent as well the potential Labour leaders would prefer Starmer's administration, that's quite unpopular, just to carry on with those changes before they have a change in leadership, so they can just quietly file it rather than attempt to have to relitigate some of it, or at least get some of it through. It'll be interesting what happens, particularly if Rayner takes over, because is she going to reverse some of those asylum changes? I'm not so sure. Like I said, I think they would prefer that they go ahead with it. They can file it under done and then move on.
Andy?
So reaction. I mean, again, it just shows. I mean, so it was general reputational risk. That's what came out of that report. Now, I'm not going to pretend I read the full report here, because who has the time to do that? But if JP Morgan commissioned a report in 2019 saying this and suggesting that he still held a particularly close relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, then I think it just shows the lack of political wisdom yet again from this Prime Minister. But so I just think in terms of, I mean, I think it's obvious that Starmer's probably going to wait till the May local elections, because why would you resign now? Because who's going to want to carry the burden of losing, because they are going to do pretty badly in the local elections. Let's just be really real here. So it makes no sense for Keir Starmer to resign right now, where the media, let's be real here, the media generally isn't very kind to Labour. They've never been kind to Labour in most of political history. That's just how the media is. So why would a leader want to take up the mantle of Prime Minister when we're going into elections in which they are going to get probably a massive hammering? So I think Keir Starmer is probably weighing up his decision to go. I think, from what I've been told, I mean, he gets this reputation that he's power hungry and autocrat, blah, blah, blah. But actually, a lot of people say he's not like that at all. He's actually way more humble and way more, for the party than a lot of people give him credit for. So I think he's probably going to resign after the May elections. And in terms of, and I think Matthew Lloyd made some really good points there. I think it would be, if they've got some important legislation, it would probably, and quite sensitive legislation, it would probably make sense for any leader to probably come in after that legislation will go through, because then they've got they'll be able to shield themselves away from that. So I think Matthew Lloyd makes a good point there. But yeah, in terms of my reaction, I just think it shows how absolutely politically clueless Keir Starmer is, and that's my point.
Matthew Goodwin-Freeman?
Well, the adults are back in charge. They're going to be better than the Tories. No more sleaze and all this sort of stuff. I mean, my God, Mandelson was probably one of the worst appointments that Labour could have made. This is our most important role, the US and UK ambassador. But he was known to have been the best pal of a paedophile who still kept in contact with Jeffrey Epstein after he was convicted. He was appointed by Labour and wanted £500,000 payout last year. That was the most shocking thing to come out of the papers. The fact that he still thought he had the right to this payout. I mean, sorry, you should be handing back all of the money, all of the taxpayers' money, because that's what Labour would have requested if it were a Tory. Put the shoe on the other foot. If this were the Tories, not only would there have been calls for Peter Mandelson to go, but there would have been calls for the Prime Minister to go too. So you can't now play that, oh, it's not right for Keir Starmer to go. It's exactly what they did. That was the hypocritical sword that Angela Rayner had to fall on. She was Labour's attack dog in opposition, and the second that she does something wrong, she had to fall on her own sword. But will this bring Keir Starmer down? I think not. The leadership challenge rules in the Labour Party are completely different to the Conservatives. In the Conservatives, I think it's a third of the party can write a letter confidentially to the chairman of the 1922 committee, and once that threshold is met, there's a leadership challenge. For Labour, 80 Labour MPs not only have to publicly come out and say they have no confidence in Keir Starmer, but also declare their support for another candidate, a specific other candidate. He has rigged the game against it. He will survive. And I actually think, and I predict this, he will survive after May as well, because there is the King's Speech the week after the May local elections. That is a new mandate from the government, a new set of laws, a new set of bills introduced by the government. Keir Starmer will play off the May elections as their midterms. They were always going to be bad, but we now have this new mandate from the King, a new start. We'll enter phase 3 of the Labour administration and go from there. So I actually predict, no, this won't bring Keir Starmer down. Yes, it's everything to do with him, and he should go if he was playing fair like he would have done under the Tories. And no, I don't think he will go after May. I think he will try and cling on and push either Angela Rayner or Wes Streeting or someone else to go get their 80 MPs and get them to publicly declare, with the risk that the second that they declare, that's it, your job's gone, your extra ministerial roles, your extra money that you get for those are all gone as well. The Prime Minister has a lot of levers that he can pull.
Thanks, Matthew. Well, Chris, apropos of nothing at all, I happen to be with Just Treatment colleagues meeting with a certain Master Wesley Streeting on Wednesday in Parliament to talk about health matters. So I'll report back on that on next Friday's episode of Political Frenemies, so make sure you don't miss it. So, Chris, where are we at with all of this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have that much more to add, really. I think everyone's sort of chipped in quite nicely there. So I take one issue with something that Andy said about sort of the media. Yeah, shocking, isn't it?
Shocker.
With Labour, sort of, with the media favouring Labour. I mean, as Matthew Goodwin-Freeman said, I mean,
yeah, that was quite funny, Andy. I must admit.
The Telegraph, the Daily Mail, Sky,
Sly News, the Britain Bashing Corporation. We can do this if you want to.
Even under New Labour, they were never favourable to Anyway, sorry, Chris, carry on.
but I mean, if you remember in the Tory days, I mean, they were absolutely relentless. I mean, with Boris, you know, whether you think it was fairly or not, you know, they were relentless, and they set the tone for the MPs for then to say enough is enough. We're going to get rid of Boris. They did that with Truss in sort of good time as well. We don't get the same kind of thing with Starmer. It's like, okay, there's been a war going on, but think of how many times Starmer has been in trouble over the past year, and he just seems to survive every single one of them. So So I would agree with Matthew Goodwin-Freeman in the sense that he's safer now. There doesn't seem to be any. I'm not sure about after May. We'll have to see. I mean, given how he's seemingly survived everything else, he may survive May as well. But again, it just illustrates that, again, the hypocrisy. Labour's going to be clean, and look at everything. Look at everything now. It's just it just seems to be double standards, and one might say a two-tier situation going on here.
I should just point out, because we haven't done this far, that Peter Mandelson denies any wrongdoing, and it's really important that we say that. Matt Lloyd, I just want to come back to you, because I've seen a couple of interviews over the past couple of days with the authors Patrick Maguire and Gabriel Pogrund, who've written a new version of their wonderful book Get In, about Labour's time in office thus far. And they put forward in their new writing for the new edition a really interesting kind of thesis, which is that Keir Starmer is the passive Prime Minister, that he just doesn't involve himself enough. And one of the things that they give it as evidence with this is that apparently, allegedly, it's not been denied so far as I know from Number 10, Keir Starmer had no actual conversation himself with Peter Mandelson prior to this appointment. And what they suggest in the book, which I'm looking forward to reading the new parts of it, is that Keir Starmer reads and reads and reads and reads and reads and reads and reads, and then nothing happens. So he's very well briefed, but very few decisions are made, very few views are proffered. I mean, is that fair or not?
So I think there is this theory that comes from that the book as well, which is that he's the driver of a self-automated train, and I think with Morgan gone and with a couple of others who have gone, I think the political direction of the Labour Party and of the government clearly has become hollowed out in that sense. I don't know whether I completely agree with the example of he didn't speak to Mandelson. I don't think, would you really usually have the Prime Minister speaking to all the ambassadors and all the different people that they're currently screening?
No, but this was a particular one, Matt, wasn't it? This was a particular one.
The architect of New Labour.
But I know. But again, I sort of, we can go back to it. I mean, last time I was on, we were talking about how, there were good reasons to appoint Mandelson. A number of people came out and said that it was a good idea. A number of people said that he was doing a good job with the tech deal, with the deal on reducing tariffs for the UK. So there were good reasons to appoint him that would have meant that you wouldn't necessarily have involved yourself as Prime Minister in the screening and asking of questions. I think it's very normal to. I don't know. I think would we have turned around and said, well, what if Starmer had somehow decided that he was going to lead on this at the time when there was a lot going on internationally? He was out of the country a lot. If we were to say that Starmer, should have taken over the entire process of screening this person, then I don't know. We would have probably said, well, you were friends with him. You were sitting around the table in Lord Liddell's house, planning how to change the Labour Party and things. Then, so why was the Prime Minister in charge when they clearly had a previous relationship? I mean, Morgan asked different people to ask the questions of Mandelson. Again, we don't know the detail yet because the rest of the detail is with the police. But so if Morgan decided he was going to pass it on, I don't think it would have made sense to have had the Prime Minister do it either, because he would have known Mandelson. He would have been he would have been influenced. I think the bigger question is, once it was put on Starmer's desk, did he what did he do? And he clearly decided he was going to go ahead with it. So that's a matter of Starmer's judgment, and he's now paying for it.
But just very briefly, I mean, do you recognise the theory that he is the passive prime minister?
I recognise he's the passive prime minister. I think to a certain extent but again, I think that's with lots of prime ministers. There are certain things that they're not going to be interested in. I mean, Chris mentioned Boris Johnson earlier. I do feel like there are certain elements that Boris Johnson's administration and Keir Starmer's administration share. Like, Boris wasn't interested in certain policy positions, was often accused of not being on the details. Starmer seems to be more on the detail, but only on a specific number of issues. Both administrations have gone through a lot of staff. Both prime ministers seem to blame their members of staff. Lots of the key people around Boris, also like Dominic Cummings, also one of the people who was driving the political project, were also sacked and lost. Yeah. I mean, you spoke about the treatment of Labour in the press compared to Boris Johnson. Well, again, I think we're probably in the place where Boris Johnson was for a number of months, where everyone knows that he was going to go. We just didn't know when. So I think there's, I think it's actually quite similar. And I think if you count the amount of staff they've gone through, they've probably gone through as many as each other. If Starmer may have even gone through more at this point. I think there's. I think you get it with every administration. I would also take up with Chris. I would say that Boris Johnson and Liz Truss were very different. I would say that the journalists didn't get rid of Liz Truss and Boris Johnson. The bond market got rid of Liz Truss, quite rightly. And Boris Johnson, it was the grieving families of COVID that eventually got rid of him. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay,
well,
right.
I think it was Pincher that ultimately.
Well, indeed. Yeah. Well, of course, in both cases, it was their own MPs that got rid of them both. Right, gentlemen, pens at the ready, because here come questions 5 and 6 of the quiz. So get ready for this. So, question number 5: who was the first ever former MP and former minister to be a guest on the pod? So that is question 5. And question 6: who was the guest whose episode thus far has the most number of views for a full episode on YouTube? And for a bonus point, as of yesterday, I haven't checked today, but as of yesterday, how many views has that episode got? So I'll just repeat that. Who was the guest whose episode has the most number of views for a full episode on YouTube? And how many views does that episode have? So those are questions 6 and 7 of 10. So let's move on to our final topic of the week, which is, and it's something we've discussed before, and no doubt we will again, and that is illiberal Labour, Labour's illiberal measures. So, and some might dispute whether they're illiberal or not, and that's why we're having this discussion. So this week we've heard about the so-called social cohesion strategy and wanting so-called patriotic communities, so we can talk about what we think about that. Then the ongoing issue that's causing real ructions within Labour about the axing of jury trials in a number of cases. And then this week we've seen the return of that age-old Tony Blair favourite of digital ID. So where shall we start on this? Matthew Goodwin-Freeman.
Oh, I mean, you could just take my answer for the previous question and put it to this one. I mean, the sleaze, the scandal, the utter U-turns. I mean, what U-turn are we on now? 16, 17? I have no idea anymore. The patriotic communities thing was really interesting because I questioned anyone's actually trying to define what a patriotic community is. We have lots of communities in this country. We are an absolute mix of diversity, and I think that's fantastic. But what we've got to have is these communities living in cohesion together. we've got to start having a serious conversation about, if you're here in this country, you follow our rules and our ways of going and our values. And that's where there's been tensions between different communities. That's where certain agitators online, and I've always called it out, stir the pot. And I don't think that's right. I don't think that should be what's happening. I think it's for us to set a level and a standard and hold people to that. On the jury trials, I mean, I would say the jury's out, but actually they've been scrapped. It's just not acceptable. This is, I think, 800 years of tradition in this country being judged by a random panel of your fellow citizens that is being scrapped. As much as Labour say that this is about clearing the backlog that built up during COVID when juries and trials couldn't take place, I'm sorry, but there are other ways to do it. Their own assessment says that it will only change 3% of the backlog. So that's not an argument, that's lying. What they could do is make judges sit longer hours, make court run 24/7, make court run on the weekend. And there's loads of little tweaks and nuanced things that you can do about this. My granddad was a magistrate. I'm not the son of a toolmaker, so you can't play bingo with that. But he was a magistrate. And he said the problem was there is a limited number of days that they're allowed to sit per year. They're capped. So he would sit every day that he can, go through as many cases as possible, but that cap's never been lifted. What needs to happen is the government needs to lift the cap, let the judges sit more days. Also, get rid of this ridiculous thing where your court case starts at 10, but then you break at 1 for a lunch, come back at 3, and then you only have another hour till 4. Right, done, chaps, for the day. Let's all go home. No. Get this going, shift rota 24/7, let's really push this through and get through so that people get the justice they deserve. And on digital ID, I mean, this was never about stopping the boats, it was never about smashing the gangs, this was purely about giving contracts to more of their mates and people who are relations to former prime ministers, allegedly. I'll chuck in there because we don't know anything until it gets published afterwards. The digital ID, look, I actually don't mind the idea of a digital ID. I quite like the fact that every now and then I try and buy a bottle of wine for the missus and I get ID'd, and it's, I don't have my ID on me, or it's in the car or something like that. I wouldn't mind the idea of having something on your phone that you can show, but don't make it mandatory. That just makes people's hairs stand up. It makes them think that there's another reason for this. I get the idea. I don't mind the idea of an app coming out, but don't make it mandatory, and don't gaslight us telling us this is going to stop the boats. It's not. If the government does anything, it will be easy to fraud and easy to hack. That's my thoughts on in a nice, short, concise rant.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Andy?
So the patriotic communities, I actually agree with Matthew Goodwin-Freeman that we need to know what patriotism is, and I worry that patriotism is being hijacked at the moment, and I think there needs to be a serious conversation on what that looks like, and I'm not too sure this government, the way the government's pivoting at the moment, at least from my view, I don't have any confidence that their view of patriotism will do any more to show the diversity, bring social cohesion. But also, I mean, communities, a lot of these communities have just been absolutely gutted due to years of public funding cuts, such as seeing the removal of Sure Start, youth groups and other things like that. And I actually welcome this Labour government, something that I think was a mistake in the coalition, but they are bringing back the Sure Start centres, because I think they do more to show what community is than just a piece, people just putting on flags on lampposts. For me, at least for me, in terms of sort of civil liberties, civil rights in general, I think we're just seeing a complete erosion of our civil liberties, and I'm actually very worried. We're seeing a complete guttering of our judicial process, where Matthew is quite right, where the principle of being tried amongst your peers is being undermined, and the overextension of powers to judges, which is just further eroding our civil liberties. And like Matthew said, I saw a report that said it will only reduce cases by 10%. it'll actually only reduce the time of a trial by 10%. So I think there are other ways of looking at it, like Matthew said. But Labour, in my view, has always had this. It likes to present as liberal progressive. It's always been, in my view, instinctively quite illiberal in a lot of ways. And you can only look at the Wilson administration. He admitted he was a small C Conservative. He wanted nothing to do with Roy Jenkins, the Home Secretary, about his civilised society. And you can see why Roy Jenkins ended up leaving the Labour Party and, our most important Home Secretary. But I also think there's another issue here, and it's actually not been reported this much by the media, but I think there's a real issue at the moment of the overextension of terrorism laws to intimidate and restrict places of assembly for people to organise their protests or campaigns, particularly in places of worship who host these. Because I read the other day that the Met Police, for the second time this year, raided a Quaker meeting in London because there was a group who were organising a protest. And if we all know Quakers, I've met many Quakers, and they are the most harmless. They are conscientious objectors who deplore violence, deplore intimidation, and any tactics like that. I've never met a Quaker in my life who I feel threatened by. So I think that really worries me at the moment. This overextended hand of terrorism laws, in my view, that is just absolutely intimidating people of worship, people of stopping protests, and just completely destroying our civil liberties.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Matt.
So I was going to say that. Patriotic communities. So I'm currently filming from Birmingham, where we have thousands of flags still flying about, which are all now ridiculously battered and tatty from the many storms that we've had. So the neighbourhood's looking pretty grim. I'm in Northfield, so literally next door to where the flags began before we exported it to the rest of you guys in the UK. So that's from Birmingham. So I worry about when we talk about national values, because then it asks the question, what is a national value? What is common sense? What is a British way of life or value? Given the fact that we used to think it was common sense to castrate gays, given the fact we used to think it was common sense to put women in asylum prisons simply because they, had an independent thought or wanted to do something so ridiculous such as divorce their husbands. So I do worry when the government gets involved in doing that. I worry about when commentators get involved in sort of dividing us between people who are supposedly not following the British way. On jury trials, so I accept Matt Goodwin-Freeman's point about how they should increase more days. I assume the reason why they're not increasing more days is because it would cost more money, and the government doesn't have a lot of that right now. In terms of scrapping juries, I personally disagree with it. I do not trust the police and the judges elite basically to be able to do this. I've also seen that the postmasters who are fighting their own cases against jiu-jitsu and things are they have also come out and said that they do not think jury trials should be scrapped. I do think, again, similar to it's frightening how much I'm agreeing with Matt Goodwin-Freeman, that it needs to be changed.
It was always going to happen, guys. You two, you're being converted. You knew it was happening.
Water on a duck's back, you'll get used to it.
I think you do need to change the system. It needs to be far more efficient, far more changes. At the moment, I do feel like the court system is run entirely for the pleasure of judges. So it's something that the government needs to change it in that way. And then on ID cards, I think I'm pro ID cards. I think, again, agreeing with Goodwin-Freeman, the idea that it shouldn't be compulsory. I think once you get it introduced, and you can see how, I think lots of people from Generation Z will just adopt it and will prefer it. I also take the point that services the other thing that I do is I campaign and work with queer domestic violence and abuse survivors, and I think of the amount of things that they have to tell the state and keep repeating to the state every time. So you've got the courts, you've got the police, you've got to sort their housing situation out, which often they need state housing. They then got to go and tell the state again the same story when it comes to their health, because often their health is in tatters by then, and then also try and sort out their job situation, get fit notes and things like that. If that could be in one place, I think that would be a lot better, a lot more efficient than it has been in other countries. And then just lastly, briefly, so again, I do, on protests, Andy talked about protests, I do think obviously that protests should be protected, and that on the whole, it should always gear towards, the default should always be that you can protest. However, partly because I do not trust the police entirely, and also I also accept the fact that when the police are on the ground and there is pressure on them and they're being assaulted and things, that they're going to have to make calls that we won't necessarily agree with in hindsight, but hindsight is 2020. But what I would say is that someone in government told me that until we get the water cannon out, if you can be water cannoned in socialist France, then until that happens, then I think we're all right for protesting in this country.
Water cannon Quaker meeting houses then.
So, Chris?
Yeah. Firstly, on jury trials, I don't really have much more to add on that, other than it's not a good look, and especially given the history and so forth. So it's really not a good thing for Labour to do. On the social cohesion strategy, now the reason why I suggested to you, and I put it in the illiberal under the illiberal title, was something that we haven't actually come to, which is the concerns over the definition of anti-Muslim hostility, and especially what Jonathan Hall, KC, who I think is either the current or former independent reviewer of counter-terrorism legislation, and he has expressed concerns that the definition is too vague. It could be kind of overextensive, and in a liberal sort of society, we need to be able to criticize all religions, and there's concern there about whether there is one religion now that is kind of out of bounds. Obviously not stir up hatred, but criticism. So I work in the security field. As Matt also teaches international relations. We've got to talk about Islamism and ideological matters, and that's important. And again, that's another thing that Jonathan Hall sort of raised, about it, about that. And also on digital ID, again, I've kind of oppose it, due to its, again, another example of state overreach. But another element of that is that I think I read somewhere that Labour's now trialling like a citizens' assembly on the policy. And again, it's another one of these policies where it's like, setting up an alternative sort of commissar sort of structure. Instead of actually using the form that we already have, which is Parliament. Parliament is our citizens' assembly. That's where everybody gets to vote. It's not some kind of assembly where the government gets to choose whoever it wants. I know you're going to say the House of Lords, but Matthew Hulbert, but in terms of the House of Commons, it's an elected chamber. I don't understand the need for these citizens' assemblies at all, but yeah. So again, it's not one measure. There are a series of measures, concerns over free speech and so forth. That Labour is building a picture of itself of being illiberal, whether people think that's fair or not. But that's the impression that's being built, and it's up to Labour whether it cares about that impression or not.
Okay, thanks. So I mean, just on the patriotic communities point, I was on GB News very early indeed on Monday morning, giving my take on that, which basically aligned with what Andy said earlier, so I won't repeat it. But just to say that that clip rather went viral, not because of anything, it has to be said, that I said, but because of the some of the rather extreme views of one of their other guests. So that's been quite interesting this week. Okay, let's turn to our final quiz questions, and we've got 4 in a row here, folks, so get your pens and pencils and paper ready. So question number 7 is as follows. About which government minister who I confronted did I talk about in an episode where Andy Chandler was the guest? So I'll just repeat that. About which government minister who I had peacefully, it has to be said, confronted along with other campaigners earlier that very day before the recording, did I talk about in the episode where Andy was the guest? And we're just writing down because we don't want any clues, but we can talk about it in a bit. Then question 8.
Just for context, I was not at the protest.
No, Andy wasn't at the protest. He was just he was the guest that week. Question 8. Who won our Christmas quiz? Who won our Christmas quiz? That's question 8.
In huge contention, may I add?
Not in huge contention. Question 9, and I put this question because I thought I should, but in a way it shames us as a podcast, the very fact that I've got to ask it. Who thus far has been our only female guest? Who thus far has been our only female guest? And it's not for want of trying, I should point out, and I'll continue to try. But yeah. So that's question 9. And our final question for 10 is this. Who so far has been our only official Reform guest? Who so far has been our only official Reform guest? And I say official because, as we now know, Dr. Chris kind of sits in the middle somewhere between the Tories and Reform. But who so far?
That's a career-ending allegation.
So
I'm amazed
who so
you didn't
far
say that about me, Matt.
Well, I mean, so who so far has been our only official Reform guest? So if you're ready, we'll go through the answers. Okay, so here we go. So, and I best make note of who's getting what right or okay. So question 1 was episode 1 published on November 9th, 2024. Chris hosted, I was co-host. But what was the first ever topic we debated? Any guesses?
Protests, wasn't it?
I was going to guess something like the US elections.
Yeah, it was Trump's victory, wasn't it?
It was indeed Trump's
I don't
victory.
know. Yeah.
So who,
I just remember. I remember the thumbnail.
I haven't watched it. I was just guessing around the time. I shall now go and watch it to make myself feel better.
So Chris got that right, and Matt GF. What about you, Matt Lloyd? What did you say?
I said it might have been the Labour government or the Lib Dems.
Okay, no, so okay. Okay.
That was too well.
So question number 2 was EP 17 saw us have our first ever guest on the podcast. Who was that? Any guesses?
Ian Dale.
Was indeed Ian Dale.
Ian Dale.
Ian Dale.
So who has got that right?
Oh.
I almost guessed Andy, but I put Ed Davey in the end because I thought that must be why you all suddenly hate him.
Oh,
You
no.
must have had some sort of
Chris, I'm assuming you didn't get that. Chris, I'm assuming you got that right.
Yeah, I said it.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, yeah. Okay, good. Okay. So Chris is leading so far with 2. Matt Goodwin-Freeman has got 1. Andy 1. Matt Lloyd with 0 so far. Okay, here we go with the answer to question 3. So question 3 was this. Our first ever bonus episode was uploaded on June 6th, 2025. But about which parliamentary by-election did we talk about and analyse the result of, and who won it for an extra point? So we'll get to who won it in a second, but what was the by-election?
Gaunton and Denton.
No?
No, I know it was a Holyrood one.
I even had the number of votes.
Which is a whole region.
Was it not Runcorn and Helsby back then?
Oh no, that's what it's called. Runcorn and Hell. Oh my god.
No! It was
I'm not with
It
it.
was Holly. I can't remember what was.
Oh,
Yeah.
Hamilton. Did
Alright,
anyone get that?
I need more
No?
wake-up juice.
Do I get a point for saying it was a Holyrood one?
No. You don't. So, can any of you... So, now knowing that, and you can't... It's got to be what you've written down. Who did you put for having won it? Whatever by-election you thought it was.
I put
Matthew.
Reform because I thought it was Runcorn.
Oh.
Yeah. I put Sarah Poach in.
No.
Reform by 6 votes. But for Gaunton and Denton, not Runcorn and Helsby.
Did anyone
it was
put
Labour,
Labour?
wasn't it?
No.
No. We're all thinking of different elections.
No, there
Yeah.
you go. So it was Labour. It was Labour who won the Hamilton by-election. So there we are. Okay. So
I knew the party. I just forgotten the name. I just.
but I didn't literally mean who. I meant which party. So you put Labour, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You get a point then, Chris, for that. Okay. There we go. So question 4 was on which
Rigged.
episode did a certain Matthew Goodwin-Freeman first appear? Matthew, do you know?
I have no idea. I've guessed.
What have you said?
I think it's an early 20s one. I think.
Is it indeed?
Sorry?
Early 20s?
I guess 30. Around
No.
30.
It was 22.
22. I put down.
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
Oh, I put 21.
Was it around July?
Yeah, it
can't
was
remember when
around.
it
It was a
Because I've
summer,
written
wasn't it?
July and then 30th.
It was the summertime. Yeah.
It was a
Oh,
summertime.
so I'll give myself half a point.
So can I say
Yeah.
Chris is running away with this, and in a sense, so he should be, because he's the only one who's been on all of the episodes with me. Question 5: who was the first ever former MP and minister to be a guest?
I've put Liz Truss because I thought she must have been what Enid launched her own podcast coming on. We'll tell her. Tell her how.
Well, she follows me. I might
Media
see if she comes on. You know?
Media conspiracy. I'm sure.
Have you had Jonathan Gullis on?
No. Go on, Chris.
Ah, damn it. Okay, I put him.
Philip Allen.
Sorry?
Philip Allen.
No. Who's Philip Allen?
Oh, Kevin. Oh, sorry, Kevin Foster. Sorry, yeah. Sorry,
Kevin
I don't know why I
Foster,
said
yes.
Kevin Foster.
Kevin Foster.
Yeah. Sorry. I don't know why I
Really?
said Philip Allen there. It's just.
Did anyone else get? Did anyone else
Dream
get
about
that?
Philip Allen.
Yeah.
No.
No.
No. Okay. So, question 6 was who was the guest whose episode has the most number of views for a full episode on YouTube, and for a bonus point, how many views? So first of all, who was the guest?
Andy.
Matthew Lloyd.
Was it me?
No?
It
I
was
know it was
indeed
me.
Matthew
I think it
Lloyd.
was Andy.
See, the public know what they want. They like good academic analysis.
Chris, did you get that?
How many of the public now?
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
real question.
So how many views?
I have to admit, I'll let people guess, but I did look this up sort of before the episode, so because I thought this would be a question.
Is it
Hold on, prepared for the
779?
quiz.
Yeah.
Really? This is
779?
unacceptable. There should be disqualification.
779, I'm going to go for.
I was going to guess 860.
700 plus.
A billion.
860.
Matt, you've got to be more specific than 700 plus.
It's 7.
Yeah, cheeky.
780.
Okay, Chris.
713. 713.
Oh well, actually, what I
714.
the last time I looked, it was 712. But I think we'll give Chris that because it's yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
You can't give him that. He looked up the answer before the quiz. You can't give him that.
No,
point.
I was probably the 713th, to be fair. So.
My first point, no longer on nullifier.
Oh yeah, you did get one, didn't you? I forgot. Okay, so at the moment we've got.
Not even given him the point about himself.
I've got to get points somewhere.
So at the moment we've got Chris on 7, Matt Goodwin-Freeman on 2, Andy on 2, and Matt Lloyd on 1. Okay, so question number 7. About which government minister did I confront in the episode where Andy was the guest that evening, but he wasn't part of the protest earlier in the day. But about which government minister did I peacefully protest and confront earlier in the day?
You protested.
Well, you know I know
you
this.
protested
So
the minister who's been putting in record amounts of public spending into the NHS, and somehow you privatising the NHS at the same time, and also the minister who has some supporters who once removed, several different times removed, may have a portfolio somewhere in their shares of private health companies, because you somehow believe that Social Democrats shouldn't have any money and that we should let all the donors go to the Tories instead, because that worked out so well before previously.
Well, that was unnecessary.
That is full title or just the shortened version?
Yeah,
That was unnecessary. That was unnecessarily personal, Matt Lloyd.
Well, I had the answer prepared for my last appearance, which, as you said, got 713 views or whatever it was. But I didn't get a chance to use it, so I thought, this is the best time to launch a defence.
Me and you can talk on another occasion on here about Mr. Streeting and what he may or may not get up to. Matt Goodwin-Freeman, did you get that?
Yeah, where's Streeting?
Yeah. And I'm assuming you did, Chris.
More commonly known as the long name that Matt said.
yeah, you know, I know that. I did the thumbnail for it. So yeah.
Okay, so question 8: who won our Christmas quiz?
I put Chris.
Daniel Laycock.
It was indeed Daniel Laycock.
Otherwise known as that green person who's going to completely destroy our economy with his ridiculous wealth tax. I'll stop.
This quiz has taken a turn.
Daniel Laycock. I know, it's got really bitchy quickly.
I'm assuming Chris and Matt got this. Matt GF.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I said.
I just keep guessing Andy. Like whenever it's whoever's Andy.
Okay.
I'm glad
So-
to inspire you.
It definitely wasn't me, and I know that.
I said Daniel earlier. You can look back later, and I have been given the right answers.
No,
so
that's right. No,
I'm
that's
not
right. Okay, so question
saying
9.
anything I didn't say.
Question 9 was, who thus far has been our only female guest?
Well, Carla Harris, hasn't she? Karen Lindsay.
Yeah,
Karen
Karen
Lindsay.
Lindsay.
Karen Lindsay, indeed. Well done. I'm assuming Matt GF or the other Matt didn't get that.
Nope.
No.
Okay.
I
And
think you guessed Liz Truss again, didn't you?
No, that's true. And question 10: who so far has been our only official Reform guest?
I couldn't remember.
Was it
I put Nigel Farage because I couldn't remember.
a councillor? It wasn't. Was it a councillor? No, it was. They were on the
It was a
episode
councillor.
after me. Or
I've just realised who it is.
Yeah,
I've just realised who it is. Russell Quirk.
Russell Quirk.
It was Russell Quirk.
Thank you, Matt, for that. That was super helpful.
But what did you put down?
I'd put Jonathan Gullis, but I'm now scribbling Russell Quirk.
No.
Yeah.
No. So Matt, did you actually put?
As soon as he said, wasn't it a councillor?
So Matt Lloyd, did you actually put Russell Quirk?
No, I just remembered it was a councillor, and it was a couple of episodes after I was on.
So Chris, I'm assuming you got that, did you?
Well, I did. So
Yeah, I said, yeah. What I suggest we do is that I'll disqualify myself because this is clearly unfair. So I'll disqualify myself. Let's see who among the guests have actually been watching the product or not.
Okay, that's fair enough. So disqualifying you, we've got Andy on 5, Matthew Goodwin-Freeman on 3, and Matt Lloyd on 2. So Andy wins the quiz.
God. Yay.
And your prize is I'm going to send you a Union Jack T-shirt. Congratulations.
You don't need T-shirts. We've got all on the lampposts. Why do we need them on T-shirts?
And some
I
flip-flops.
can get them for free. I'll just take a trip down to Birmingham and just
You
take
can get
one
a
off the
tatty,
lamppost.
holy one that you can wrap around yourself.
Yeah,
Exactly.
nothing
The
says
winter
patriotism
poncho.
than that. A tatty and flag.
So well done, Andy and guys. Thanks for being good sports for the quiz, and thanks so much for being on our 50th episode of Political Frenemies. And we're really delighted because our numbers are good pretty consistently. Now I think last week's episode got the I thought it might just about overtake the Matt Lloyd episode, but it didn't. It hasn't quite thus far. It's on 690 something.
It didn't, yeah.
But we're doing really well, and it's all thanks to you guys and others. And I also want to, it pains me to say anything nice about Dr. Chris, but he does a whole lot of work that none of us see. He does all the technical side. After the show is recorded and I swan off to have a drink or make my dinner or whatever, he's there beavering away, making sure the episode goes out. So I really want to thank Chris for that. And Chris, any thoughts about having survived these 50 episodes?
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm just amazed that we've managed to survive sort of 50 episodes. But but it's been really great sort of doing these episodes with you. And it's really good to have all these guests on as well, because we've met some really sort of interesting people over the weeks, and long may it continue.
Absolutely, and I know I've said this before, but there's so many political podcasts. We're 10 a penny now, but I do think we're unique in that I don't think any other British political podcast has the range of guests from across the political spectrum that we do, all the way from kind of your party and the Greens to Reform at the other end. So and kind of every flavour of politics in between. So, and also, I think we remain the only political podcast that's hosted by, kind of a Tory. We're never quite sure with Chris anymore, and a Lib Dem. So, we like to think we're pretty unique. But here's to the next 50 episodes. I have to say, last night when I was preparing the quiz and I was going back through our past episodes, I thought that is now a real body of work actually about the past kind of year and a bit of politics. So I am really proud of what we've achieved. So a little pat on the back for us, and of course for those of you watching or listening, thanks so much for that. We couldn't do it without your support. Please keep doing all the internet-y things. I say it every week. Please subscribe, please like, please tell your friends about us. Please follow us on X, Twitter at Political Frenemies. And from all of our wonderful panel here, and indeed from everyone who's ever been on the show, keep watching, keep listening, and we'll see you next week for episode 51 of Political Frenemies.